I'm going to introduce Greg Perez, or Perez.
If you speak Spanish, we usually say Perez.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Greg is the regional canon for the northern and the western region, has 58 parishes that are under his purview, and he'll introduce a little bit about what he does, but we welcome Greg. He's been a great support to the previous vestry and to the current vestry, so we appreciate his leadership and look forward to what he has to say. So, thank you much.
Thank you. It's not that I'm expecting a call, but I need to watch my time, so I'm just going to put this here. So good morning to all of you. Can I move up a little bit? Can you hear me? Yes. Right? Good, because my voice doesn't always carry. So yes, I am the regional canon for Northern Western region. There's two other regions, the Central region, and then the Cape and Islands, the Southern region, Cape and Islands. We have three regional canons. I first started when Bishop Alan Gates appointed me for the Central region, but your canon, who you may have met then, Martha Hubbard, took a parish in Albany, and so almost all of the ministries for the Hispanic communities are in this region. And so I am bilingual, and so we thought it would make good sense if I switched over to this region. I think I live in Swampscott, so it's not a difficult drive for me. So I come in as a regional canon to work with parishes. In particular, I begin with the wardens and the vestries when there is a transition. That is when it's one rector to another rector, or that you are in between. So I come in to begin the work, and it is a process. The regional canons, because of the bishop's concern and just wanted to look at the process, asked us to renew and to review the present process for calling a new rector, which we did. A few things changed, but not much. But other times I will come in to offer advice on particular issues. If there's conflict, I will be called in. If I can't handle the conflict, then we usually call in some therapists, people who can come and do that. I will work with lay leadership, with wardens, with vestry members. So just a variety of sort of topics and issues that I am called in to take care of. I speak on behalf of the bishop, so as she always reminds us in our meetings, when you talk, they're listening to me. So I do know that we have her support. We meet with her weekly, and if not more often, just to run things past her and to let her know how things are going. She is going to pay you a visit, I believe, sometime later this year. I am retiring, believe it or not, at the end of the summer. I know I look young, but believe me, I'm not. And so what they are doing now, the diocese, is actually taking names for regional canon position, for my position. So I would say sometime in the beginnings of May, they will look at the first interviews and then the selection. I will work with my replacement for at least a month to hand over the different congregations that I have. So at the moment of the 58, I have two congregations that are in the process, they're small, that are in the process of closing because they realize that the majority of their people that come might be less than 10, and they're aging out. Other congregations are just, the financial situation is not good, and they have eaten through their endowments. They just are running out of funds. So I don't want to mention those right now. And then I have probably about six or seven that are half-time positions. In other words, they cannot afford to call a full-time rector or a priest in charge. And then of those that can afford a rector, there are 9 that are in transition right now. So as you can imagine, my hands are full as I try and give a little bit of attention to each one of those congregations. But I'm here this morning because I wanted to talk about the role of an interim priest. So you have Reverend Ali as your bridge priest, and a bridge priest is simply that, it means that Ali is here to bridge from one rector to an interim, which is mostly the case, because it never really goes from, the rector leaving, you put a bridge priest in, and then you get another rector. There's always a search. There's a transition. And so the person that comes after a rector is usually an interim. Now, interim ministry is a very specified ministry. Not all people can do it. A lot of people can. Some are very good at it. They have a particular training, if you would, for an interim priest. So it is a very specific ministry. An interim priest comes in because he or she has been trained in terms of how to take this congregation to a new chapter. So I'm going to go through that. So an interim provides temporary pastoral leadership, of course, during that transition. The interim also focuses on stabilizing the congregation. The interim also helps to manage the administration of the congregation and assists in navigating through conflict if there's any conflict in the congregation. So in essence, the interim is preparing the parish for a new chapter, for a new leader. So in order for that new leader to come, that interim is working with the vestry and with the congregation to make sure things have been ironed out a bit. And they do that through healing, that there's a time, an interim period is a time for a congregation to think about what does healing look like for us. Now you might say, well, we don't really need healing. We're perfectly fine here. Well, I would say, not necessarily, no. Because of your unique situation, I would say the Holy Spirit, is going to probably ask you to think seriously about what does healing look like for Christ Church. It doesn't mean that you're a fragile community or that you are, that you're just not healthy. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that, there are times that we need to talk through things and we need to allow the Spirit of God to bring healing. Also, the interim will look with you at evaluating your present ministries and to look at those ministries and to figure out how can we strengthen those ministries. Who's doing those ministries? Do we have enough volunteers? Have we trained enough lay leadership to do those ministries? So they're going to help you look at all of that so that when you choose and call a new rector, you will have a better sense of, this is what we have. These are the ministries. These are the people that are doing these ministries. So the interim is really there to guide you in the in-between time. After COVID, there was a wonderful book that was written, I forgot the author, but it was about the liminal space, right? And you are in this liminal space. And liminal is really like the door, how before you step into, you're in this room, but then you have 1 foot in that room. Or 1 foot here and 1 foot out. You're in that in-between time. And in that liminal space, God sends us people that can come and work with you and can come and listen to you, and can come and shepherd you, and can come to continue to offer pastoral care so that you are not without pastoral care. So let's talk about congregational stability. It's very important that the interim works and acts as a non-anxious presence. So it's very important that the interim does not come in and makes you all nervous, but to be a non-anxious presence for Christ's church. That's what you need, right? You don't want someone to come in and say, oh, I'm so nervous, or we're anxious. We don't know what the future's going to look like. The interim, again, comes in to offer in congregational stability the pastoral care that is needed. People that might be sick and perhaps might even be in their last days when Allie leaves, the interim will be here already, so that there's a nice transition so that pastoral care will continue. The services will continue. The other thing that is very important that an interim does is to help the congregation deal with loss. To deal with loss. I know that certainly here in this congregation, there has to be a sense of loss after Father Patrick left. And so just in dealing with that, as with any death or any loss rather, that, you know, we need that time to talk about it, to talk through it, to have the pastoral care to guide us through it, so that when we have come to the other side, we are in a much stronger, a much healthier place. In terms of administrative oversight, now what I'm talking about, these are the things that the interim really does. I will talk a little bit about what they do not do. So with administrative oversight, the interim is here to support the staff, and to work with the wardens and with the vestry. They're here to support lay leadership. So I met the leader of the altar guild. What's his name? Bo. Right, and they said, I'm at the altar guild. And so the interim is there to support people like Bo, to support your choir minister, to support the people who teach the religious education. So that's very important that the interim can do that. And of course, I already mentioned that they are here to support the vestry. And the interim is here so that you will know that day-to-day operations are taken care of. You know, sometimes when there is a loss of a leader, you know, you wonder, well, how is this happening? Or how is this task happening? And your vestry is doing a magnificent job. Who are vestry members right here? I know if you're a vestry, right. So your vestry is doing a magnificent job. And so, but, you know, they need to assure you, and the interim needs to assure you, that the day-to-day operations will continue in this period. The things that the interim should not do. The interim priest will not interfere with the search process and is not supposed to interfere with that search process. The interim will come and might help you to think about who you are as Christ Church, so that when the search committee begins to put together the profile, they will have a sense of your identity, your unique identity as Christ Church. So some of that the interim can do, but the interim does not step in and say, well, let me see the candidates. You know, let me look at their curriculum vitae, their resumes. No. So the interim never should, sometimes does, and then I have to come in and say, nope, you can't do that. Does not interfere with the search committee or in the search process. The interim does not ever put his or her name forward as a candidate to be the rector. That just does not happen. And that's really specific because interim ministry, again, it's intentional, that they are trained to do this in-between work. So an interim cannot become your rector, okay? The other thing that the interim should not do, that the interim does not come in and begin to change like the liturgy or to begin to change the music program. Now, if there are some violations of the canons that are taking place that we do not know of in the diocese, and the interim knows about them, then the interim has the right, the canonical right and responsibility to say, this is not correct. This is not correct. Canonically, you're not supposed to be doing that. And has the right to say, we're going to have to change that. But by and large, doesn't come in, if everything's going well canonically, to decide, oh, I don't like that early morning service, or we're going to move the 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock and move the 10:30 to 1:30. I mean, that would be very far. With music, sometimes interims come in and they think that they can say, well, I don't like those settings, so we're going to try this. I want you to change them for next Sunday. The interim can talk gently with the music director and can say, you know, have you ever thought about this? What would it be like if the congregation did this? But doesn't come in to just plow it all down and say, no, we're going to do it this way from now on. The interim really needs to do his or her homework so that before they sign a letter of agreement, that will be the next thing that has to happen between your vestry, the wardens, the clerk, myself, the bishop, and that candidate for an interim, they need to do their homework. So they're going to ask the regional canon for information about Christ Church. They're going to ask for, you know, let me understand their past. What are they presently doing? What size of a community are they? What's their ASA, the average Sunday attendance? What do they have by way of ministries? Because that will give him or her a real good sense of who Christ Church is and how they might be able to help to take you to that next chapter as you move forward. So the things that have to happen before you receive an interim priest, not only do their homework, but a letter of agreement has to be signed. And the bishop also finishes, she's the last signature on that letter of agreement. Now, the interim works at the pleasure of the diocesan bishop. And so in many instances, depending on situations within the congregation, the bishop might be the one to say, I have 2 candidates for you. This is my preferred candidate. Or I know the bishop in another congregation in my region said, this is the person I'm going to appoint because this person is known, has particular skills that align with the congregation with regards to conflict, with regards to its past. And so the bishop knows this. So the interim will always work at the pleasure of the diocesan bishop. Therefore, the interim needs to understand what are the expectations of the bishop. What does she expect him or her to do? The interim knows that the bishop expects the buses to run on time. What do I mean by that? The buses to run on time. That's what the bishop wants. Basically means that keep things moving. Stay on schedule. Keep it moving. Keep things operating so that there's no lapse. I will stop and say that one of the tools that we have begun using is through a consulting firm called Holy Cow. And so they have several tools that are used that are really survey instruments. I know, Holy Cow. They've been doing it for over 30 years. So one of the things that I will probably most likely recommend to the vestry is that we set up a time in which you, the congregation, can do a survey called the Congregational Assessment Tool, or otherwise known as the CAT. It's a wonderful instrument. It gives us a really great picture of where you are right now. It talks about your energy level. It talks about what are you looking for in your next rector. It talks about your hopes and dreams. It helps to prioritize. These are the 3 things at the top that we think are very important for the life of Christ Church to continue. It gives you data that sometimes, most of the times, you've already given the data, such as your finances for the last, say, 3 years. It will help you to break out into age groups so that it'll start with the young congregants to the middle congregants to the senior congregants. It'll even talk about those who have been here less than 2 years or less than a year, and then those who have been here for quite some time. So it's a really wonderful instrument that I'm going to push, and I mean that in a gentle way. I'm going to push on the vestry. I'm going to recommend to the vestry. There is confidentiality. You do this online. And so there are no names mentioned. Nobody knows what you have said or how you have filled out this survey. So, are there any questions right now? I realize I have time but I'm told that I should go over to the other worship space at 10. Any questions? Yes.
I'm having a really hard time with this whole thing and the way it's been handled. And I feel as though there's been a lack of transparency. I understand that there was a letter that was written that started this whole ball rolling. I happen to like Patrick Gray very much.
Mm-hmm.
He was the reason why we came back to this church. And he helped me bury my husband from this church. My grandchildren, when they're around, they like to come with me because they love to come and hear what he had to say during his sermon. The lack of transparency has been what's going on is really angering me. I mean, I didn't come over Easter because I'm so angry. And I don't know if there are a lot of other people here who feel the same way, but you are asking us to put our faith in the vestry, who I understand have been the ones who've gotten rid of Patrick Gray. Patrick Gray is very upset by how this has been handled. And I think a lot of people here are also upset. I am curious.
If I can make one correction, because it's the way I understand it as the regional canon, is that the vestry did not get rid of Father Patrick. There was a letter of resignation on that he wrote.
Yeah, but that's not how it started.
Right, and I'm not going to go into that.
That's the problem.
Right, but the thing is, this is why an interim is so important. If we were to allow you to immediately go from your rector and his leaving to a search committee without ever having had to deal with things such as this, it would be chaotic. It would not be good, and worse things could happen.
I don't think you're not, the problem is transparency as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
I feel as though you are connecting with the people here. The vestry may know what's going on, but a lot of us feel as though we're being left in the dark, and I'm really cross.
That I'm not connecting?
No, I'm saying the people, well, I mean, you are far away, so you're not here.
Right. But I come by because of the diocese. So I have been working closely with the past vestry and with this current vestry. So yes, while transparency might be an issue, again, you have to trust that the interim process will work. We'll call things like that out and we'll bring them to the surface.
Just to follow up on that, I think it's like anytime there's a personnel problem, it's not everybody's business to know the details of what exactly happened. However, I feel like we need to know that part of the transition will be putting things in place that would prevent this in the future. And not just a healing where we all get along, but some sort of healing where we address how should those problems have been dealt with along the way so we didn't end up with this. And I think that might be what you're trying to say. I don't need to know all the complaints people had, but obviously this blew up in a very destructive way for everybody, all of us, and the Grays. How do we know that that won't happen again? And is that part of the healing process, sort of evaluating that?
Yes. So a candidate was presented by the bishop, and so that is not yet public because that candidate is dealing with having to say goodbye or whatever. So that's that. This candidate is high.
Could you raise your voice a little bit? It's really hard to hear that.
Okay, so there's also a couple of seats in the front that. So the candidate that I know has been trained in system theories, has been trained, highly trained in understanding what that means with a system is broken, to go into the history of it. And there probably is history here. So believe me when I say, if you think that that will not be addressed, it will be. That is the preventing this congregation from doing that again. So the person that I hope is going to be coming is highly trained and really psychologically knows how to get into this and say, you know, I'm going to figure out who those troublemakers are. Not that I'm going to kick them out, and these are my own words, but how can I work with people? How can I work with the fractions? How can I work with the groups that might exist right now? How can I bring people together? You know, I understand that your Reverend Debbie Phillips, who was here for the Tritium, you know, she complimented you because of the community that she experienced. So let's look at it this way. You are a very good congregation, no doubt. You are a strong congregation, but you are a system. And like any family that is a system, there's going to be someone who is going to make a mistake. There's going to be somebody that's going to conflict with another family member. There's going to be someone that's going to be the most difficult, but yet they're invited to Thanksgiving table. We may not speak to them, but they're invited, right? And that's a part of who Christianity or what it means to be a church, you know? So believe me when I say, when you give this interim time for the Spirit to come in and to bring that healing, that's what I'm asking of you. That's what the diocese is asking of you, that you trust, so that these kinds of things do not happen again, so that there is more transparency going forward, so that we understand what are the deep-seated problems and issues that have been plaguing this congregation, if that's even the case. So, yes.
Is there any sort of diocesan norm or standard for the length of time of an interim period? Or perhaps maybe that's more tailored to the situation. What guides us to?
It's a very good question. So a bridge, as I said earlier, is just that. It shouldn't be no more than 3 months, 3-4 months. When you have an interim, it could be 12 months, it could be 18 months. But what is determined by that is the search begins during the interim process. So it's not going to be that you're going to have an interim priest who's going to be here for, say, 16 months and then say, okay, I believe they're at a healthy place. Let's begin the search. I'm sorry, I shouldn't step back away from this camera. So at some point in the time that the interim is here, the search will begin. Because the interim will say, I think that they're at a place to put together the search, to get a search committee going, to begin all of that. So we're not going to wait until after that process. But it depends on each situation. Just like it depends when the bishop knows of a situation and says, I really think this person can address what's happening there at Christ Church. So does that answer your question? Any others? Have I been clear about what the interim does and does not do? I'm sorry.
I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm willing to hold on. I number among those who was really broadsided by this deep fondness for the graves, feel acutely grievous of the situation that we found ourselves in. But at the same time, there's a bond as a body. But what I am hoping, and I think you suggested it, but I think what we need as a congregation is the opportunity and some sort of apparatus to be able to have a platform where a hard conversation can happen. And so many of us do not understand how this beloved family could have been so brutally expunged from our midst so abruptly. It just left us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'll speak for me. It left me reeling. And then it has caused me to ponder the environment
true, honest conversation and reckoning with all of the factors that led to this brutal end of what had been a beloved, relationship with the rector for many of us. I'm not speaking for everyone. So I guess to bring this back to your conversation this morning about the role of the interim, I'm asking if there is going to be some sort of apparatus, not just surveys, not just, kind of these ethereal promises of, ways to heal, being trained to heal. Is there going to be a system put in place where people can feel safe and respected on every side of this troublesome season, to share what happened, to pray, to ask the Holy Spirit to fill us and guide us to a place where we can come together in healing those, for everyone on all sides of whatever happened in this catastrophe. It was a catastrophe for some of us, not for all of us, but even so. So it's the apparatus, the concrete mechanism. That's kind of what I want reassurance that will take place.
Again, knowing the person that I know, I would definitely say yes, because again, this individual has been highly, highly recommended. Bishop Julia is not going to just send someone in that doesn't have the training and the capacity to do things such as that, to go into the system and to look deeply at what we can do differently so this does never happen again. No church is without fault, right? No community. But I have seen a lot of communities that kind of bury the real deep-seated issues that happen in the congregations. And it just plays out. It's from generation to generation. It could either be that there are power plays, that there are small groups versus another group, that there are control issues. I have seen it so badly where some lay leaders, by having a key, that makes them the king or the queen. And so they're going to control everybody else. I've seen that happen so often. I've seen, there's been jealousy. One family pitted against a couple of other families. So, all that needs to be addressed. And if you were here today and you told me, no, just bring us anybody, we'll get through this, I would say, well then, I'm sorry, but maybe I should retire sooner. We care deeply for you, and that's why we want to see things like this never happen again. And you don't understand, well, you do understand, excuse me, my language. There are so often times in which I see clergy abused by different leaderships in the community. And we're fully aware of that, and it breaks my heart as a clergy person because I say I need to protect my sister or my brother who's ordained. I can see that some of this is not right. So there are issues within congregations that are deep-seated, that need to be pulled up, dealt with, looked at, confronted, right? Confronted in a nice way. I'm not saying the interim's going to come in and decide, you need to go, you know what, you're a problem, you need to go. I don't think that's going to happen. That's not what Jesus would do. But I do know what Jesus would do, which I hope this interim, and I know this interim well enough to say, is going to say, do you really love each other? Are you being honest with each other? Because I don't hear you being honest. I don't see you loving each other as a church. And the other thing I would hope the interim would do to challenge you on this. Many churches that I have come to work with, they want their church. We want our church builder, we want our church community. But they do not want to be church. And that's a grave difference. To be church is to be able to confront the issues of transparency, the issues of leadership, the issues of just tear congregations apart. And you cannot do that. I would hope that there will be healing that comes together from those who supported the grace to those who said no, I know that there was a letter written. I read a copy of the letter. So it's those kinds of things that we have to address and say, it's time to look at that. Tom?
Just a comment for the vestry. We had a meeting with the candidate this last week, and one of the things he said is, if you're not willing to do the work that needs to be done to heal, then I'm not your person. You need to hire somebody else. He indicated, I've got other opportunities, they're out there. I think that I can be an effective interim for you, but if you don't want us to do the work, or you don't want to do the work as a vestry and as a congregation, then we should go somewhere else. And that was kind of what Greg is just saying, but I just wanted to let you know that that was a comment that was made. And clearly we don't want to sweep things under the rug. We don't want to move on like nothing happened. Something happened, and he's very aware of that. So.
I just wanted to say I had a conversation with my grandson this morning who's here today. He has not wanted to come back since this happened because he was very attached to Eleanor in the Sunday school. And he did show up 2 weeks ago unhappily, but this morning he was just having an absolute fit, didn't want to go to church. His mother's away, his father's sick, I'm taking him to church. And I said, first of all, if you leave, you add to the grief, because every Sunday everyone asks, and not everyone, but a lot of people ask, well, where's Kristen today? And I said, and that if you go and you don't come back, then you're just adding to the grief of the loss that we already feel. But if you stay and you're part of the healing, and you try to, be the cheerful one, and not to say that your grief isn't real, but just to try to make it better any way you can. And I'm just talking to a 9-year-old, but I think it goes for all of us, that we just have to be part of the healing.
That's a wonderful thing you said to your grandson.
Well, and also to say that Reverend Allie Lutz is somebody that anyone can talk to about this. The people who are having a hard time, that's why she's here on Monday through Thursday. Is it? Where are you, Allie?
I'm here, yes, please.
What are your days?
Come to office hours. I really want to hear where it hurts.
I'm sorry I've been away, but you keep referencing a letter. What letter was this?
So does somebody from the vestry want to answer that, or shall I answer it?
I can. I would
Tom,
not.
you sent a really good email about it, so channel your email. You and Patty sent a really good email about it. So if you haven't seen the email, we can send you a copy.
Yeah, that would probably be the way to go. There was a letter sent by about 18 parishioners that was sent to Patrick Gray and to Bishop and to the Canon and to the vestry. And the letter, I'd be happy to send it to anyone that would like to see it. It's, and this is my opinion, not necessarily the thing, I think it was the thing that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and it did sort of come out of the blue for where he was, but it did cause a great deal of hurt for Patrick and for those of us that saw it. And I know a number of people in the room were approached to sign this letter. Some refused, some signed it. There was an allegation of some financial improprieties which have not been proven to be the case. And we have an audit this month for the previous year, and we'll publicize the findings of the independent auditor, but we've been assured by the current bookkeeper and by the treasurer that there was nothing going on. Patrick didn't take trips to some exotic place or pad his bank account somewhere. those are some of the things that were there, and there was some questioning of just his leadership. Probably, that again, speaking for myself, some of them are unfortunate. But, yes.
I just wanted to clarify those. Oh, sorry. For those, and I think we're on the same page with this, those who would like to see that letter, the names of the signatories will be redacted.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify something?
Yes.
Can you stand?
The letter, I'm on the vestry, hi, my name's John. The letter was to the vestry, the letter was not from the vestry. So the letter was not the vestry getting together and saying, these are our criticisms of Patrick. It was addressed to the vestry, among others, it was not from the vestry. The other thing I'd like to say, as someone on the vestry, is I think all of us still have questions about what happened. I don't think anyone is sitting there thinking, oh, we have all this information, but we can't let other people know it. All of us, I think, still have questions about what happened. So those, I think, are going to be explored in this process, but we're not sitting back kind of withholding information. I think it's a complicated situation to have that answer.
I would just like to urge people to read Lori Manganiaro's Friday email, because in there, the vestry has started a new, to me, communication campaign. And it takes time. So as it takes time to heal, it takes time to communicate. And they're starting with, these are your people on the vestry. This is who we are. So read that Friday email, and if you don't have email, I'm sure the office can work out some way to communicate all that information to you. But I have found it really helpful. It's like, oh, these are really amazing people. So the communication has begun. That's my point.
I think, Ally, did you have your?
I'll pass that. Thank
Okay.
you. That's really great.
I just want to say, I'm watching my time because I need to go and kind of familiarize myself with the space, and I keep moving away from the camera. You all are in a very good place to begin claiming ownership of yourselves as a congregation. And that interim, their role is to come in and create this non-anxious sort of congregation so that you can welcome a new rector. And I know that you're going to learn a lot about causes, what happened, what transpired, things to avoid going forward. But we all know, let's face it, when there's loss, there's grieving, it's tremendous. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, Father Patrick has been gone, February 1st was so it's not a great length of time. And in that time, there is hurt. There's anger, there's resentment, there's sorrow and loss, and there's this bitterness that is going on. There's staying away from the church, which I hope you don't do. And I hope you can convince your grandson to give it another try, because Jesus would never give up on us. Right? So give it another try. If you're staying away, don't stay away. All that's doing is just hurting your siblings that are here. You're all in this together, and this is a great time for you to be a part of the healing, the confrontation of what needs to grow, and then to begin the healing, and to do it together. And I would hope that when you do it, that you're not angry at people, or that people aren't angry with each other, but that they can put that aside. Because we know, as you know, anger does nothing but it further divides. And the only thing that's going to conquer that, as we know, is love. So if you're in this congregation because you love each other, then you're on a right road. So,
We have to love the people who signed the letter.
Yes.
We might feel angry.
What do you think Jesus would say to you?
I don't know. Love your enemies.
Yes,
This is longer than just a year or 6 months or 2 months. And rectors come and go. Church, I hope the big church doesn't come and go. The church continues. It's a continuum. We're part of a cultural, religious time right now. These are rough seas we're in. And it isn't as simple as just this magic cure we're going to get when we find a new rector. I move forward. I love the congregation. I move forward with fear and hope.
and that's a great image, because I too move forward with fear. And we all here have gotten in the boat with Jesus, who said, "Follow me." And we know there's rough seas, but we also know that Jesus has the capacity to silence that, to bring peace, as the gospel so says today. And yes, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be afraid. So it's okay to say, "I don't know about that place, Christ Church." On Wednesday, I will meet with the bishop, and I'm sure she's going to ask me, "Well, what did you think of them?" I'm going to say they're in a typical, healthy, normal place. They are afraid. They are angry. They're grieving. They don't know if they want to stay there. But I think she's going to say, "Well, I hope so," because ultimately you are Christ's church, and you need to own that, but to do it in a healthy way, even when there's fear. Any other last minute? Because I think I need to probably... Any thoughts? I hope this has been helpful, and I'm supposed to retire sometime either at the end of the summer or mid-September, but I will do as much as I can with your vestry to move you forward so that my successor comes and doesn't have to come to learn who you are again. There's going to be a lot of notes, that will help my successor to understand much better where you are as a congregation. Okay? Ellie?
Wait, Dean, can I ask Dean, Father Dean, let's all stand in as much of a circle as you can make. And Dean, will you close us in a prayer? You will answer us.
Lord be with you.
If we don't mind.
That's okay. It was spontaneous.
Let us pray. Dear Jesus, I know that you have seen us and you've had difficult thoughts about us. And you even wonder now if you should join in this circle. But you love us to the end. You love us to the extremes. You love us in the conflicts. And we praise you for that. Help us to go to church now or from which we've just come with hearts that have been hardened, but you soften them. You soften them until you can squeeze in and love us so much and help us to love one another. We ask this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
At this point, to let you know, if you need to contact me or just need some pastoral advice, you can get my email. It's very easy to find. So don't.
Can you tell us your name again, please?
It's Greg Perez.
P-E-T-T-I-S.
Perez. The accent on the first C. Perez.